Hi, Phyllis. My popularity chairing this board is my ability to make a meeting go very quickly. So I will not start too late. So welcome, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order and we will kick off with public comments, though seeing we have none. We will kick off with our agenda. First, I do want to mention that we receive emails that come to the Cincy Parks email address. We received emails related to Burnout Woods accessibility, conservation, and snow removal this month. Keep your comments coming and thank you for sending. So with that, we'll move to approval of the November 20th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now we'll go to, we have Mark Fisher from Cincinnati Zoo and team together to share some updates at Cincinnati Zoo. Thank you for joining.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for having us. I have 15 minutes or more. Okay. So Jason asked me to come by and do an update about what we have going on at the zoo. In case everybody didn't know, we actually are on the park land. We have a contractual relationship with the park board that goes back many, many, many decades and many, many decades in the future. So what we've done historically back in the day is give an occasional update on what we have going on, mostly related to master planning, getting approvals of those master plans. It's been a minute, COVID, a lot of change in leadership here with the parks. So it felt like it was overdue to come back and do a refresh. Quite frankly, updating where we're at on a master plan that you all approved a long time ago, right? Close to a decade ago. So I'm going to go through that and talk a little bit about what's coming up. But also, I wanted to introduce David Jenneke and give him a few minutes to talk about some changes that we've made.
Applause, applause.
Thank you for giving us the chance to come here and give you an update on what's happening at the zoo, which is very exciting. Give you a little bit of background on myself and the importance of parks in my life. To be honest, I grew up with two teachers as parents. One of them who taught John in the 6th grade, and always spent our summers in parks, traveling the U.S. national parks that have been foundational to who I am and hopefully the leadership that I can bring to the zoo. Now, fast forwarding today, I've been working with Thane for 35 years at the zoo, and he decided earlier this year that he was going to step down at the end of our 150th anniversary, which we are celebrating all year long. And I was privileged and humbled to be able to be given the honor to take over as zoo director starting in January and lead an exceptional group of people. We were just joking, the goal is to keep the team together and keep moving forward with a really exceptional team of people. You know, for the last 19 years, as Thane has been director and I've been chief operating officer at the zoo, we have focused on inspiring our visitors with wildlife. Seems like a very simple thing to be hopeful, joyful, to celebrate nature, connect people to wildlife, particularly in a day when I believe it's 80% of our U.S. population lives in urban areas. The needs for parks and for places like zoos are more important than ever. But when you say inspire a visitor with wildlife, it begs the question, why? Why are we doing that? What's the end game there? And of course, that part of our vision, and you'll see this unfold as Mark talks in a second, is about creating lasting impact, not only through education, through the development of teams and leadership skills, through folks working at the zoo, but through conservation programs that put communities at the center of conservation. We have made a very intentional move toward the human dimension of conservation, engaging communities and people in ways that we think will create that lasting impact, whether it's across the street or across the globe. and excited to see where the next decade goes as we continue to expand some of these programs. So I will leave it there and turn it back to Mark to talk a little bit about the master plan projects, ones that we know of, which we're in a very good position for this transition because we have some important work in front of us over the next 3 to 5 years. And then we also get to plan and dream a little bit about what's next.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so this is gonna be quick. I don't have a lot of time to get into this. This is a decade of work that we're gonna go over in 6 minutes. So just for people that aren't familiar with it, well, everyone's familiar with the zoo, but this is what the zoo looked like in 1990, actually even earlier, even as recent as even 2005. If you notice all the gray, that's parking. And in 1990, 20% of our 20 acres of our 60 within our USDA fence was asphalt. And today it's none. So we've gone from 40 acres of zoo where there's a person or an animal in it to 60 acres. So we've grown 50% within the zoo. We've been able to do that. Those big parking lots between us and the VA and across the street. So that's been what we've been doing for the last 20 years, quite frankly. So we've been a little busy. Just for effect and ahs and oohs, let's do that again. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pausing. So anyway, so when we jumped in the More Home to Roam campaign, we didn't basically started with asking, what do we want to do? What do we want to be? We don't have time to get into all this, but we'll leave this if people want to dig into it. But this is about what we want to be, not just bricks and mortar physically, but what do we want to be? What do we want to be to our community, to ourselves, and all the things? So lots of good stuff there. But we also did a large campus study. The image on the left was an internal audit of what are we proud of, what is lacking, what's up to the standards, all these types of things. And then we kind of did a similar study actually this year, and you can see the improvements we've made, which is significant. We are the second oldest zoo in the country, if you didn't know that, by just about 6 months. Philadelphia Zoo put some ducks on a pond and said, we're a zoo, and they beat us because they knew we were going to open. Or so the story goes. So we have very old infrastructure. We have several buildings that are over 100 years old, which creates a lot of infrastructure challenges, which I know you all are very aware of as well and familiar with. So we've done a huge amount of work. There's still some more work to go. This is just a kind of a bigger master plan representation of all the work around the zoo for the last decade. And it started with the new entry, well, since the revision of the entry. We built a new entry in 2008 and 9. If you remember that bridge across Main Street. That was a game changer for our zoo, the parking lot across the street. And when we built that with the elevators and escalators, the zoo was at 900,000 people per year, steady. So you're designing that and you're like, well, how much should we design this for? We have to design for some growth. Man, let's go big and go crazy and think 1.2 million. That would be insane. Well, now we're at 1.8 million today. So it's not working. So we had to basically re-engineer, add another bridge, add another parking lot, do a bunch of work. That was the first part of More Home to Roam. We had to make sure the entry sequence for our zoo was safe, effective, et cetera, et cetera. And then we went to Rue Valley, which if you're familiar with the zoo, walk in down to the left where the old Sumatran rhino area used to be. Super cool, amazing, fun, super cute animals. That's what we do. We jumped over African penguin, built this during COVID, which was super fun and awesome. This is where the old sea lion exhibit used to be, right in the middle of the zoo by the train tracks. Turn that into African penguin. And then the big one, elephant trek. In the zoo business, most zoos are getting out of the elephant business because it's too expensive to build and maintain. It's just a behemoth, pardon the pun there. But Thane and our board of directors and Dave said, no, we're going to have elephants. We've had elephants for 140 years and we're going to keep having them. So we made the big commitment to take that old back parking lot, which was now available because the parking lot between the VA and the zoo, that unlocked this. And we were able to take what was roughly a 3/4 acre elephant facility outside and go to 5 acres. So a huge expanse. And all these projects you're hearing about, the whole point of More Home to Roam is literally More Home to Roam. Quality over quantity, just make sure we have the appropriate amount of space for our animals to live their best lives and into the future. So this was the biggest investment in the history of Zoom, the biggest thing we've ever done, most difficult thing we've ever done. This was a $62 million project, which is crazy. More than double anything we've ever done, ever. Very disruptive. And it was a heavy haul. This was also building right out of COVID. So as everybody knows, inflation, construction, labor, it was a total disaster. We got through it and we fully opened it up this past year, but it's something we're very, very proud of. Have a chance, you need to come down to Zoom and check out this thing. It's world class. It is best in class. And then we just opened up Bear Ridge and Otter Coast. This is where the polar bears used to be. Now we just have 2 bears from Montana and some sea otters from the coast. The cutest otters you've ever seen in your entire life now reside in Avondale, Ohio. Who would have thunk it? So just open that up, big deal. And so with that, we're about 80% done with More Home to Roam. It's a $170-ish million campaign. Again, light years and we've ever done, and we're getting close to the end, which is very exciting. Then Mexican Wolf, which is where the Siegfried and Roy white lions used to be, right by the manatees. Reimagining that from Mexican Wolves. It's under construction literally right now. Be done in about a year, next October, November. And the next really cool one is where the old elephant house was. Well, what are we doing with that? If you've been to our zoo and you can think about our giraffe exhibit, it's good, it's nice. The holding building is pretty small, and we can never have more than, say, 4 giraffes like we have now. So we're going to we're going to renovate the old elephant house, expand the arch, and bring giraffes up the hill about 200 yards into that facility, so we can go from 4 giraffes to maybe 10 or 12. So significant expansion and a super cool building that'll start in the summer to be done sometime in early 28 is the plan. It's a big project. And another key part of this, one of the things we love about our zoo, we are a park that has animals in it, right? You cannot see an animal in our zoo and think this is pretty friggin' nice. This is a beautiful botanical garden, which stands alone. I will say, I wouldn't say this is negative, it's just how we are. You can walk into our main entrance and it can be a minute before you see an animal. You gotta get to gorilla or giraffe. Now with this, you will walk into the zoo, scan your ticket, and you'll see a tower of giraffes. And if you didn't know what a tower of giraffe was, that's a group of giraffes. So when Cherry Pursuit comes up and they say, what do you call a herd of giraffes? They, boom, got it, write that down, you're welcome. There's that, it's another image of it. Then when we do that, what are we doing with the old giraffe facility? So this is the challenge of working at the zoo. We don't have any space. We have no space. So everything's a domino. Clean it up, upgrade, boom, close that down, move it around. It's like literally dominoes and chess for 20 years and for the next decade. But we'll do that. We'll move up rhinos, zebras, flamingos, and some other animals. And that will be at More Home to Roam. In about 4 years, we'll be done. Hallelujah. Check it off the list. But as you all know, you never stop capital campaigns. You run into the next one. And when you run into the next one, you need to be planning a couple of years ahead before you even start. And that's where we're at literally right now. So we are going to spend 2026 planning, ideating, designing all that for the next thing, the next campaign, whatever it's going to be called. We don't even know what it's going to be called yet. That's how early we are on this. And we will keep this group involved and engaged as we go along to get input on that and eventually approval. Hopefully call it a year or so, something like that, maybe 8-10 months. But what it's going to revolve around is, again, if you go to the zoo where the rhinos, zebras, and bongos are, right in the middle of the zoo there, if you've been kind of paying attention to where we're moving animals, we're emptying out that space so that in about 4 years, we will have like almost 10 acres of space cobbled together to include the Night Hunters building, to kind of start from scratch. And we are hoping for something amazing, planning for it. We're so early on, some sort of amazing aquatic, whether it be a sea lions, seals, we don't know yet, but something significant, amazing, something focused around marine mammals, probably. But that'll be our next huge project. So this is like 2031, 2033, somewhere in there, plus or minus. That'll be like Elephant Trek was the center and core of More Home to Roam. This will be the center core of the next thing, whatever that might be. And we have some other sketches. I'll get to those in a second. Also, if you didn't know this, The zoo has 800 acres of farmland, about 25 miles from here, 600-ish in Warren County and 650, 130 in Claremont County. It's called the Mast and Boyer Farm. Super cool. So we're working to take those things to the next level. And trying to think how to do this quickly. Boyer Farm is stunning, amazing, wetland reclamation, hay production for Fiona, solar panels, sheep everywhere. It's amazing, beautiful. Native plant propagation. Mast is more of a breeding facility for cheetahs and some other animals. So very different things, but both super cool and both about 45 minutes from here. So, and most people have no idea, like, what are you talking about? So if you ever want to take a field trip, let me know. But again, this is kind of going back. We're going to be jumping back into master plan mode, talking about, do we have enough toilets? Do we have enough ice cream cones? Do we have enough all these things? As we doubled our attendance, it's put a lot of strain on our zoo that we kept up with, but we're going to take a fresh look at it. Some other examples, ideas, Lemur Island by the Komodo area, a good example of, okay, that was great 50 years ago, not anymore. Reimagine that, where the gibbons were, all the big hooting and hollering, which have moved down to, some have moved down to Elephant Track, that whole area. That was amazing in 1972, not anymore. Got to reimagine that. So it's just constant refreshes. This is actually an image of Mast Farm. We have our cheetah facility, just again, bubble diagrams at this point. This is Boyer. Boyer Farm is the coolest, best kept secret in this town. It is amazing the work we do up there. It's truly impactful. And it's been quiet for a long time for a lot of reasons. One, because we didn't want anybody asking questions. As soon as it becomes public, people start wanting rules and committees and stuff. But now it's polished up a little bit, trying to get the word out there and get other people engaged to even dream a little bit bigger. But super cool facility out there. Who doesn't want to talk about parking? You know what I'm saying? So again, now analyzing everything, that's the amount of parking we used to have, double the parking, still not enough. Again, comparing things like ice cream cones, nachos, benches, all that stuff we're going through again. Sustainability is, hopefully you all know, your zoo is the greenest zoo in the world. Not saying something we're very proud of. We're ultra aggressive on our journeys and we want to keep going on that. If you ever want to hear more about it, let me know. And this is, that's Elephant Track. That picture was an asphalt parking lot 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what we do at the zoo. It's stunning and it's amazing. And it's on your property. So thank you for your support as our favorite landlord in the city of Cincinnati. So recap, we're home to own, about 80% done. Hallelujah. Incredible. The critical mass is over. Now we're on the back end. And thank you for support on that back in a long time ago, 2017 or 18. And over the next 6, 8, 12 months, there'll be more chatter, more discussion about what's the next more home to roam, making sure people are engaged and feeling good about it. So thoughts, questions on that? I know it was a lot.
Can I offer one parting comment, which is an invitation? So if you ever have interest in coming out and seeing anything we're doing at the zoo, but I would highly recommend our Boyer Farm. It is a remarkable facility. It ties back to a lot of the work that we do in the community. It is our nursery. It is where our botanical garden begins with our annual program, with our native plant program, with trees, and the work that we do in collaboration with a lot of people here in the room starts out there. So know the offer is there if you ever want to go out and take a look at something we're doing. So thank you for your time. Questions?
Well, I haven't got a question, but do you still have that single trainer that trains every new animal that comes into the zoo to come back to their enclosures?
Yeah.
To be safe when there's a storm or whatever.
Yeah.
The whole thing fascinating.
It's remarkable what we're able to do now. So now that single trainer is now, that job is part of every keeper's job. So
really,
we have bonobos that we can do cardio ultrasounds on. We can do blood pressure cuffs on them. We have a crow that crates itself, comes into education programs, does activities, flies around, then flies back and pulls the door shut. So all of that operant conditioning, I'd say in my 30 years at the zoo, that's the biggest change that has occurred. It used to be, you would go in and manhandle animals. Now you spend a great deal of time training them, reinforcing natural behaviors and getting them to do those behaviors, whether it's emergency recall, whether it's getting in and out of the crate, getting used to being in front of people, natural behaviors within their habitat itself. Those really cute otters that Mark mentioned are also the most voracious eaters I have ever seen. So you train them a lot, but they eat a raw bar every day that includes pounds of shrimp, clams, and squid. That is a lot. The training is something that's now part of every single keeper's job.
That's fascinating.
So.
I'll say real quick, one last thing. I didn't have a slide for it, but just to reiterate, for the last 20 years and again, forever, we have a lot of effort, sweat equity, time, energy, and heart invested in Avondale. So we do a crazy amount of work at Rockdale, South Avondale, the Urban League, just go down the list. Something we've been really working hard at for the last 20 years, very organically, at times very quietly, just trying to be present in our neighborhood, just helping out where we can help out, whether it's cleaning stuff up, planting trees, helping with school programs, whatever, putting up solar panels on the churches, all that stuff. That's not part of our capital campaign, but it's part of our zoo. So we're heavily invested and we'll continue to do so. And that's just in Avondale. Partnership with the Reds, P&G, Reds Community Fund, all from Evanston, Lower Price Hill, South Collinsville, Roll Hill, all of it. So it's something that's really important to us.
And your team has been instrumental in helping us with Let's Go Local over the past few years as well. Big frequency that we do in the trees.
Yeah, that for you.
They bring them up.
Partnership. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I'd say, this is one of the great organizations in the city, and it's because it's just got a remarkable vision and you've got great capacity to execute. And I know that you're going to credit the whole team at the zoo, but these things are built through leadership, passion that you bring, and just your ability to lead. And we know who that is. So great job. I'm so excited that you're continuing the legacy of the last 35 years into the future, and excited to see what you do. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to learn from you and for us to benefit from potential partnerships out there to bring some of the great work that you've done in the zoo over the last 35 years. And how many? 20, and Dean, almost that many. Okay, got it. 30, 35 years to bring some of that into more of our parks. So I think we welcome it.
And your team is great as well. Work well with your team and be excited to continue to explore some new ideas. So thank you.
Let's clap now.
The elephant deal is incredible.
So it's
So enormous.
doing our company picnic at the zoo this year, like our.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Behind the scene tours of the.
Is that, all right. All right, next up, we have the National Society of Colonial Dames of America. Yes, okay. To speak with us about the potential for a Vietnam Women Veterans Memorial. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. So good morning. My name is Catherine Durkis, and I am here today representing the National Society of Colonial Dames of America in the state of Ohio, which is a big, long title for an interesting group. Very much thank you for giving us the time today to speak with you. I'm here about an exciting project that I already mentioned to Kate, is that we do need to have a correction to the agenda, because the project is not a Vietnam Women Veterans Memorial. It is a Women Veterans Memorial, is to honor all women who have served our country from its beginning up to the current day. So just a note on that, it's to make sure we know we're talking about the same thing, right? So for the Colonial Dames, this project became official at our September 20th board meeting. And since that time, conversations have mostly, what I would say, be internal with various stakeholders kind of associated with the project. The Colonial Dames ourselves, with the Parks Foundation, with Parks Leadership, with veterans and veterans groups, just kind of talking about all of the idea of that. But today I'm here really to seek a green light to move forward with the project and to kind of set all the various wheels that we've got lined up, ready to go in motion. So that's where we are today. So PowerPoint up. Quick. We'll talk a little bit about who we are. So the National Society of Colonial Dames is a genealogical organization of women with lineage times to the colonial period. So probably the most well-known genealogical society is the Daughters of the American Revolution. This is the period before that. So hence the name, the colonial period. And so the national let me go ahead. I think I can go forward. Did that work? Did not. It's all right. I mean, I can do it without the PowerPoint. There we go. So we have 3 goals as an organization. The first is historic preservation. The second is patriotic activities. And the third is education. I mean, we seek to help everyone understand the very complex history of our country and learn about kind of the strength and the determination of the men and women, slave and free, who gave birth to our nation. So we were founded in 1896. Many of our members are here in Cincinnati, but we do have town committees in Columbus, Cleveland. So we are the state of Ohio. But you would recognize many names within our rosters over the years. So Taft, Longworth, Kilgore, Anderson, Groesbeck, lots and lots of families with a tie back to the colonial period. So currently, let's go forward. There we go. Thank you. You're reading my mind. Nicely done. Currently, we manage 3 projects. Too far. One more back. There we go. We manage 3 projects here in the Cincinnati area that are considered great American treasures. The first is the Betts home in West End. It is the largest brick home there in the area. We also have the original Kemper family log home. It is in the historic village out in Sharon Woods. And then we also have the full colonial and federal gallery in the Cincinnati Art Museum. In honor of the 250th birthday of our country, that gallery is undergoing a complete overhaul. And it will be finished in time for a public event we host each year at the Cincinnati Art Museum. It's a lecture, talk, and tea, and that's scheduled for May 6th. So that gallery will that photo that you see now will be completely out of date by early May next year. Okay, moving on. We're talking about a monument. This all started with a small monument that already exists within Eden Park. It's in the section of the park going in on Eden Park Drive, where Crone Conservatory is on the left. It's on the right before the bridge. So that's where it is. This marker that you see in the photo there, it was placed on October 12th, 1985 by the National Society of Colonial Dames. And the marker had, even just because of turnover of leadership and things like that, turnover of membership, we weren't even aware of it. But it was brought to our attention following a Memorial Day event hosted in the park there by the Vietnam Veterans Chapter number 10. And they host that event every year. Some colonial dames were in attendance. And following the event, WVXU produced an article that they put online. That's the feature of that smaller photo. But the wording on the marker says, in recognition of women of the armed forces who have volunteered their services, that freedom might live. And you can read the reaction even from the male veterans, that it's that piece that's in blue right here that says, we've been here holding ceremonies for 20 or 30 years, and we never realized this marker was there. And when we went over and saw it and became aware, we said, oh, this is something that needs addressing. So the Vietnam Veterans Group reached out to us and said, are you aware of this marker? And it's this small marker off to the side in the park. So that was at our September meeting. And so Forrest Brandt, who's the president of the local chapter number 10 for the Vietnam veterans, he invited me to come to their Vietnam Veterans event, the other event they host each year right there in that park. And I was asked to make a remark about the marker. So I started doing a little research, and what I found was that marker is the first memorial tribute to women who have served our country in the United States. So women were not officially allowed to join our armed forces until 1942. So that was after Pearl Harbor. In 1985, this marker was placed by the Colonial Dames, but it predates the very large women veterans memorial in Washington, D.C. by a decade. So all of this comes forward now, given its historic importance. What are we looking to do? We've talked with Jason, the foundation, everyone. The plan is we will keep that original marker because of its historic importance, and we will return that space in the park to kind of its original installation in 1985. But we also need to find an adjacent site for a new memorial. And we've talked about some possible locations and next steps. And when we worked with Jason, one of the next ideas was to talk with the designer who set up this park layout to see if there was a vision, kind of a future vision. And then that way this memorial can be situated within that vision. So any information that we can find on that. So the Colonial Dames, for the 250th birthday of the United States, we are seeking to reimagine a memorial to honor the service of all women and the many roles that have been fulfilled to protect and serve the United States. The proposed wording that we have for the memorial is: women have exhibited unwavering dedication and service to our nation in times of peace and war. Their service defends our freedom, advances equality, and inspires future generations. So that's internally what we've come up with. And the goal of our unveiling is Veterans Day, November 11, 2026. So one more slide in here about the location. So you can see some overhead views. The red pin is the existing Vietnam Veterans Memorial that's there. The site of the marker, so I don't say it wrong, is A. That's where that current marker is, there alongside that walkway. And then there's a garden and an open green space being C. So we're still working out where this memorial will be located. So that gives you an overhead view. Okay, so going forward, so also since September when all of this started, actually, sorry, I've already spoke that piece, my apologies. One more, so since September, in November, we partnered with Artworks to issue a national call for artists with a deadline at the end of the month in January. We have confirmed a panel of 5 jurists to review those submissions. And the qualifications include a woman veteran, a neighbor to the park, an award-winning artist, a civic leader. And in many cases, there's overlapping qualifications. So for example, the neighbor to the park has also been a curator at the art museum. So I think we've got a good set of people who will then evaluate the works. We will select 3 semifinalists to submit a design and then 1 finalist to create the memorial. Okay, so let's go forward. So of course, everyone's thinking, and what is this going to cost? I know how all this, we know how this goes. What's this going to cost? For the budget, the Colonial Dames are prepared to make the lead gift and to cover a significant portion of the costs of this. Some community organizations have already offered some funding just in general talking about the project. They find it compelling. And we at this point have formed a fundraising committee who will handle that arm of it. Additional funding, in my view, will just take this project from good to great. We're in a good spot, but additional funding could make it even better. Overall, the budget is a little bit to be determined because there's too many unknown factors at this point. Everything from where exactly it's going to be located in the park, what sort of park improvements need to be made, to how the artist design comes forward, the number of figures that will be involved, and things like that. So because I cannot speak to or appropriately represent women as veterans, I have also informed an advisory committee to help to guide this project, because in the end, the goal is we want this to be meaningful to them. And so we're going to rely on them. Some of them are by names that you know who will guide this project. So the conversations, all of them so far have been fairly informal in tone, informational. But the Colonial Dames, we are ready to go with the approval of the Parks Commission to move this project forward. So that is my presentation. And if you have any questions about it, where we're going, the origins, what we seek to do.
Do I understand that you would like to see this completed by November 11th, 2026? Ooh.
Yes, and when you're working with the military, that would be called warp speed.
Ooh.
Yes, but we've worked backwards. Artworks has been very good at guiding us in terms of the process to select the artist. We've been in touch with the local foundry. We've already communicated with the local foundry who, for example, created the Ezra Charles statue. We know the lead time. We know what's involved. Veterans Day is such a key date on the calendar and for it to be a veterans memorial, that even if the unveiling is a prototype, we'd still like to move forward with that date. And that the final installation, the final finishings of the park and things like that may come after that date, but that would be the official date of an unveiling of the memorial.
Tell me concept to installation. What was Ezra Charles?
Well, yeah.
I think it was like 5 years.
Exactly. This is why, I mean, I'm getting very nervous.
Sure, I understand. And it could be that we don't make the November 11th deadline. And I don't know what caused 5 years for Ezra Charles to.
We don't either.
You know, so we're.
Yeah.
The pandemic, so we'll put part of that in there. And that's why, I mean, and this is part of why we've spent a lot of time prior to today just trying to work through what the process is going to be. Parks Foundation has been super helpful. Jason has been super helpful. Artworks has been super helpful. Nobody has yet said you're not going to make November 11th with a prototype. So that's where we are. So when the art jury works with the artists and selecting of the finalists, one of the key questions is going to be, what's your calendar?
Right.
You know, is this workable for you? And we will work with that as it comes, kind of thing. I mean, that's the best that we can do with it. A lot of times it appears that, especially in some early conversations, the initial hurdle is money, and that's not our hurdle at this point. So.
Would it be conceivable, and I'm thinking out loud, I truly don't know if it is, but would it be conceivable, the art piece is an installation. It is a fixture versus potentially a alteration or project on the park proper. And I don't know if that can create an expedited path, but if it could, that would certainly be worth exploring. If you were going to build a wall 50 feet long, that's a different thing. This is an installation. If it would be conceivable to accept that could provide some expedited.
Sure.
Again, I'm just spitballing of ideas about a way that could conceive.
I mean, but that's a piece, and I'm glad Jason's here. So earlier this month, Jason met with us and with Daisha came out. We walked through the park talking about potential site and some of the potential work of park improvement. Because right now, if you go back to where that map is of where it's located, that walkway does not connect over to the other part of where the memorial is, you know, so that's why finding out like what was that vision of that park originally and how could a new piece, but I mean, I think we're talking about it's going to be within the park, there could be a walkway, there could be benches, there could be things, so it could come from within, some work within the parks, yes? Am I speaking correctly?
I mean, I think everybody on the board has identified everything, and it's what we talked about that day, which is the size and scale of it will affect the timeline. And so if it is, as Commissioner Nyer mentioned, an installation where we basically need a podium for something, that will be quicker. If it is, again, as Commissioner Nyer mentioned, adding pathways, adding other physical changes or gardens or different things, that will add complexity to it. And so,
And I think that looking at the importance, the date itself, the key piece is the installation, whether it's the prototype or the finished piece. You know, if it's a walkway that comes later, if it's a bench that comes later, if it's grounds improvement that come later, all of that is completely workable, certainly. I think the key piece for the veterans is the honoring of Veterans Day next year on our 250th birthday. So that's where we are. Okay, yes. Right, so the only other question I have for you is as this moves forward, because as you can probably imagine, it has become more than a part-time job for me, managing this as well, with everybody who's been so great about it, is what communication do you want from the Colonial Dames going forward with this project? And that's really, you know, where would you like updates along the way? Do you want them at a meeting? Do you want me to just send her into the office? I mean, I just want to make sure that we are operating on the same page.
I think we'd like to see more about your vision for the project. I think this is fantastic, and I think it's a wonderful way to honor women who have served in the armed services. And I like that you have a deadline and that it's associated with American birthday, the birthday of the United States. I'm challenged with thinking about this being anything other than a podium with a statue, because we've got high demands for our limited time.
Sure.
We've got projects that are on the list for the next 3 years. This isn't on there, and it's gonna have a very difficult time fitting anything in that's beyond what we did at Ezra Charles, which I think is fabulous. But the idea that we would have pathways and, you know, that this now becomes a project that the planning and design team needs to work into a really tight plan is just not in the plan.
Right, that I understand.
So that would be my feedback about just our limited capacity.
Certainly. So as we move forward, so the timeline with the semifinalists from the art jury is the end of January, and then a final selection notification by the middle of March. So at that point, we will have had a round of design and enough to probably to continue the to have a meaningful conversation about what this would look like, probably at the end of March.
So what's your, I think you probably would want to bring that design in before you select your artist. That would be my thinking around it. But maybe it would be helpful for us to understand what is the scale of this project from your vision, maybe as compared to the Vietnam Memorial that's there.
So the vision right now is probably more on the scale of the Italian installation.
Capitoline Wolf.
The Capitoline Wolf.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not talking about, and for me, is our vision is this will be an interactive, I guess is the best way to describe it. So when I was at the veterans event in November, people would walk up to the memorial and the existing memorial, and based on just how it's installed, they would reach up and they would touch the foot of the soldiers. This design certainly lends itself to be figurative. We're talking about women and their roles in the military. I would like, so if we have a figure, for example, of a woman during the Revolutionary War who was just out on the field feeding the troops, I would like you to be able to walk up and put your hand on her shoulder. So we're talking something that's much more approachable as you are standing there in the park, the viewing, the interaction with it. You can actually touch it, feel it, walk up to it, walk around it, see all their faces. And we actually do have someone ready who has agreed to give her services for historical authenticity of the figures. So we want you to be able to see it, feel it, touch it, be there with it, experience it. So ground level, concrete, a concrete pad kind of thing with it down at eye level, and the figures would be life size or maybe a little smaller than life size. It is not going to be an 8-foot Ezra Charles type arrangement. It'll be much more human sized. And on the smaller side, because women were smaller. Does that give you what you're thinking about?
As you move forward,
Yes,
will you please keep in mind
yes.
the cost of maintenance and raise enough money to have an endowment that'll cover the cost of maintenance?
Next question.
So Cindy Beckmeyer, another
So
colonial.
what, let's say one of the locations is just, there's a central walkway, there's a tree right now, if it got placed in the center of that walkway, what sort of maintenance in addition to the regular maintenance are you envisioning? Because we have no other.
Weather plays a heck of a role on anything, any kind of statue, any kind of object that is placed into the park.
So could we,
Okay.
across the street, could we check and just see for a comparison
What's
purpose?
what's set up for Kathleen Wolf and
And
it,
find out what is set up for that
Okay.
scope or scale.
These have been conversations when we did the site walk and even when we met originally at the foundation office, we've been talking about trying to keep, again, a very aggressive timeline and trying to keep it as simple as possible in order to fit it in with minimal disruption in order to meet that timeline. And then what the consequences or the delays would be of adding complexity to it. And then we've definitely talked about trying to keep it minimally in need of ongoing maintenance. So hopefully it would be, keep the trash picked up around it, keep the grass mowed, and it would be mostly a very low maintenance installation. And then that is our challenge, right? If you come up with a higher maintenance installation, then I think that's absolutely one of the things we've talked about is needing to make sure that
It's a good project. It's a great project, but don't rush it and not make it as good as it can be.
right,
That really concerns me.
sure, I understand.
How do
And
we get on your list? We're not officially on it, which I guess I would have thought we maybe would have been on it. How do we get on your list of?
The list is years long. So it's something we have to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay,
You're the first step in right now. I would ask too, Jason, that when you're looking at potential locations, that we not just consider what's the right location for this statue, but how does it, I know this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. How is it interacting with the rest of the park? Right? It has to feel like it was planned in that space from the get-go, right? And not just another addition to a space that's already got a lot of stuff going on.
absolutely.
okay. That's why we're relying on, is it, but
He's the indoor.
yes,
Thank you for coming and sharing your vision.
absolutely. Well, thank you all. Yes,
At the peril of potentially putting words in my fellow commissioners' mouths, and please take them out if you do not want them in there. I don't think any of the sort of practical logistical considerations should be interpreted as any sort of lack of excitement or support for the concept and the approach. And sometimes it's a bad analogy in parks to say this, but we can lose the forest for the trees, if you'll forgive the bad pun. But in this situation, as you go about with artists and potential funders, I think it would be appropriate to say, based on the body language, everything, the Board of Commissioners is positive toward the project, recognizing that there are some logistical complexities, but the general notion is well received and well taken, and provided we clear those logistical hurdles, would be well received in future steps as well. I would just think that's something you want to be able to share with funders as you approach them that way. But
and I appreciate that because we have been very quiet talking about it just all in one-on-one situations with stakeholders and various people. There's not been any public announcement that this is coming pending really today's meeting. We needed you all to say, yeah, let's move forward. And trust me, I have a headache most days thinking about some of the logistics involved in this, but I'm grateful for all of the great help that has been there to support it and to move it forward the best we can. And then we'll look to give an update at the March commissioners meeting. We'll know better what who the artist is and what the design would be. And certainly if there's anything ahead of time that please reach out, let me know. Jason, Jennifer, Daisha, they all know how to get a hold.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
thank you.
We've got Garrett Piano. That's who you are.
That's who I am, yes.
Yes.
Pleasure to be here today.
Talk to us about urban forestry.
I am, yes.
Down, Garrett, or
Really, it's whatever.
up to you? Cool.
Stan, whatever you're comfortable.
I always feel we're having my back to part of the presentation, so.
That's it.
Okay, sit it is. The real challenge will be, can I read the presentation from the seat? Well,
One thing.
perfect, okay. Let's see.
Garrett was promoted to be our supervisor of urban forestry last September. And so Crystal handled the urban forestry assessment last year in his first year, but now we're excited for Garrett to make the case and present all the great work that urban forestry is up to.
And it's a pleasure to be here and speak with you today and kind of share both the success of our program and what we hope to do in the future, as well as the proposed 28 assessment as well. I know that they're no longer here just while the presentation is getting set up. I also have to just congratulate the zoo as well. They are a phenomenal partner with everything that we do and really just a huge asset in the community. As Crystal mentioned with our Grow Local program, it would be a very different event without their support as well. So just want to acknowledge them since they were here today. Right. So with that, today I'm here to speak with you about the 26th Cincinnati Urban Forestry Assessment. And at the end, hopefully receive your approval or moving forward with taking this to City Council.
I want to know
Yes.
what that tree species is in that picture. How many of them you are planting in our government strip? These days.
Look like,
I already know what the answer is.
I think they're honey locusts, if I get the picture correctly.
I know the answer to the second question anyway.
Well, I'd have to look at the plantings, give an exact number on that. So outline the presentation today, we'll go over the overview of our program, functions that we provide, current staffing levels, a little high-level overview of the funding mechanism that provides the necessary resources to run our program. And then we'll go into the budget work plan and move forward to presenting this to you for review and approval. So what is our mission in urban forestry? Cincinnati Urban Forestry, our program is dedicated to oversee long-term care and development of Cincinnati's urban tree canopy. Now, when I'm talking to residents, a really easy way for me to explain that is that we serve as the Lorax for the city. That is our main function and core. That being said, the core functions that we provide residents. First and foremost, we have a staff of industry professionals that are all accredited by the International Society of Arborists. So we are well trained. We have 2 in-house crews that run around 365, 24/7, providing storm cleanup, pickup, as well as addressing tree issues throughout the city and parks. We serve as subject matter experts for other city departments, our own organization, and also outside organizations as well if they have issues regarding trees or need information. We also provide a 6-year preventative maintenance cycle on all city trees within the right-of-way. That's approximately 80,000 trees. And we also provide long-term planning and reforestation initiatives. We do every 10 years, we do the countywide tree canopy analysis, which we use to inform our planting plans and strategies. And we also work alongside other city departments to look at innovative solutions for forestry issues throughout the city. Sidewalk complex being one of the primary issues that we often come across. And that includes looking at alternative solutions such as concrete grinding, flexi-pave, and biochar as well, and looking at other soil amendments that we could do to improve the health of the trees within our city. Last but not least, further integrating GIS into our abilities and basically using GIS to better track and account for what we're doing within the city and provide better accurate reporting out. Now, what does this all look like? First off, this is your urban forestry team. These are the people and the individuals that are out there every day of the year, making sure that our streets are safe and providing services to the residents. And there are a lot of new faces in there this year, which I'm very, very happy to be able to say that. In terms of our organizational structure, the points on the lower portion there are our infield arborists. So we have 3 arborist ones, which would be our introductory arborists into the organization. So they're kind of building their skills or learning. It's really our entry point into our program. Our arborist 2s would be our climbers, and then our lead arborists oversee the crews in the field. In addition to that, we have 4 urban forestry specialists that each oversees a separate district of the city, as well as a maintenance crew leader that oversees all of our in-house crews and provides training and expertise with that as well. And last but not least, we have the urban forestry supervisor that oversees the whole program, handles the budget, and keeps things rolling smoothly. Breaking that down a little further, the map on your right is kind of showing those 4 districts that I mentioned that each forester covers. We have a central, east, west, and north district. I mentioned the supervisor oversees everything within the program. The urban forestry maintenance crew leader oversees the actual crews. Urban forestry specialist, again, handles those each issue within their own district, as well as manages a separate contract within our program, which would include preventive maintenance, emergent maintenance, planting, and stump grinding. And then we also have our GIS analyst as well that really helps us provide all the tech background and support with that to make sure that we can do everything that we do in the field. And then I mentioned our in-house crews, again, new as of this year. We're super excited about this. But we have the Arborist 1, which are introductory, Arborist 2, which is our mid-level, and then our lead arborist as well, which kind of oversees everything. And really, we worked very closely both with the city and kind of providing a pathway to advancement with this so that it's really a classification series, multi-year process to get that done. Again, we're really excited to have that in place. And again, this is what that looks like. I can say a lot of words, but the pictures capture what they do. Everything from climbing, aerial tree work, stump grinding, heavy equipment operations. The center picture up there with Josh Jump, our lead arborist up there, was actually clearing a tree from a CRC property. We provided an assist to them with that. So again, we work very closely with other departments and throughout the city as well to provide services and create a great canopy and a safe environment for our residents. Part of that too, urban forestry responds to an average of 800 storm calls annually. Everything from trees down in the street to birds and trees, or bird scooters, I should say.
Bees.
Yes. For the fiscal year 26 to date, we've received over almost 1,200 customer service requests, of which we've closed out 1,152. So, and a customer service request is initiated when a customer or resident calls either 311 or uses the online app to basically request a service from the city to investigate either a tree issue or letting us know an issue down in the right of way, or any host of issues that relate to trees in the right of way. And again, we cannot do what we do without partnerships from the community. This here is from the Roberts Academy Arbor Day tree planting that we did earlier this year, which was in partnership with Duke. Provided 35 trees that we were able to plant on into that campus over there in East Walnut House. Is that correct? And then these photos here are from the Grow Local event over in West End. And again, volunteers are also really important to what we do. They provided over 2,600 hours of service last year and planted right around 162 trees, which actually is a little over 10% of the number of trees that we planted last year were planted by volunteers. So again, I cannot reiterate, being a part of the community, being out with the community and their support makes what we do possible. I mentioned that 10-year overview or canopy analysis that we do. Last one was done in 2020. That analysis basically lets us take a bird's eye view of the city and get an idea of how much tree canopy do we have, where are areas that we work on, and where are we actually really hitting our goals and doing very well. With that, overall, the city has a canopy of 43%, which is fantastic, but there are areas that we absolutely need to work on and improving canopy. And to do that requires partnerships both with other city departments, community leaders, as well as just focused efforts on our part within our section. And those canopy goals, again, industrial and downtown area, we're shooting for 10%. Mixed use industrial would be right around 25%, and then residential is 40%. And again, we always try to ask, well, why is canopy important? Why does it matter? First off, trees are a vital public infrastructure to the city. They do everything from reducing air pollution, they help mitigate stormwater runoff, they reduce surface temperatures, and they just generally improve quality of life for residents. And those are all things that are crucial to providing really a city that we want to be a part of and be involved with. With that, the urban forestry regulations that actually provide for the funding of our section include CMC 743, which actually guides our program and kind of all the regulations that inform what we do, as well as the funding mechanism under Ohio Revised Code 727. which allows us to issue an assessment to care for trees within the right of way. Key point on that, though, 80,000 trees are what we take care of and over 2,000 miles of right of way within the city.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, so here we go. Which also, these should be included within your board report too, both with the work plan and the summary of that as well. Now, this is a breakdown of the assessment. So again, we charge an assessment of 31 cents per linear foot footage on the right of way. We are not changing that from last year. That is still going to be the current rate that we're going with in 28. Front footage assessment method, again, kind of breaking that down based on your parcel or the property that you own and the abutting right of way around that. That assessment is levied against the property at 31 cents per foot. Music Hall, for this example here, has frontage off of West 14th Street, Central Parkway, and Elm Street, total of 1,157 feet times 31 cents. The assessment on that property is $358.67, and I'm really happy I could read those numbers from here. How do we compare with other municipalities in the state? Our assessment rate of 31 cents is right kind of on the lower end for other municipalities that we surveyed. Again, Toledo charges 50 cents per linear foot. Some municipalities charge upwards of $9 per linear foot. Those typically are smaller municipalities, but for the services that we provide, we feel we have a very reasonable assessment rate. And again, we are not raising that even though inflation has raised everything else around us. Going over the assessment process, we were at the very beginning right there in that little green chevron right there. So we have, last week, we took this to the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. They recommended unanimously that we bring forward the budget proposal and work plan to the Board of Commissioners for approval to go to council to levy an ordinance. From there, we'll work through this series of steps, and the assessment would be levied in January 27, I believe. Okay. From here, I'm going to refer to the paper because there's no way I'm going to be able to read those fine points right there. But in terms of the 28 budget proposal that we're recommending for personnel, we expect to spend $1,552,298. This accounts for 25% of the division manager of natural resources, 25% of the senior GIS analyst salary, urban forestry supervisor, 4 forestry specialists, 1 administrative technician, 1 part-time park specialist, urban forestry tree crew made up of the maintenance crew leader, lead arborist, 2 arborists 2s, 2 arborists 1s, and 1-time park specialist. Again, a lot of people go into taking care of the trees that we love so much. The capital equipment, we're recommending a $70,000 allowance to potentially replace pickup trucks. Again, some of our trucks in our fleet are a little aging. If we do not wind up having to use that to replace that truck, that'll go into our reserve. For contractual maintenance, we propose $550,000, which covers emergency response and routine street tree maintenance between pruning cycles. I mentioned that we have those new crews. So our crews will be handling the majority of work for trees that are less than 20 inches in diameter. So we do expect to see some cost savings. We anticipate right around $100,000 annually from what we currently are spending in our emergency maintenance contract. For preventative maintenance, we're projecting $620,000 off of that. That pruning cycle is going to cover the communities of Clifton, East Westwood, English Woods, Millvale, South Cumminsville, North Fairmount, South Fairmount, villages at Roll Hill, Avondale, North Avondale, East Price Hill, and Lower Price Hill. Again, our in-house prunes on trees that are less than 8 inches in diameter. And we are actually starting to already work in those neighborhoods on preventative maintenance, so to get ahead of that as well. And then last, our stump grinding contract, we plan to expend $75,000 on that. That will allow for approximately 400 stumps to be granted annually under current contract prices. Planting and young tree maintenance, we propose $300,000 out of the assessment be spent on replacing trees removed in all communities and also conducting targeted plantings determined by that 2020 urban tree canopy analysis. We estimate that'll be about 600 plantings. We also plan to supplement this with additional plantings from our compensatory fund account as well, which is Fund 428.
Spent almost 500,000 last year.
Last year we spent actually.
That's anyway.
Yeah, that is correct. And our total expenses for last year amounted to 3.1 million. For the section as a whole. Yeah, so it is a reduction in terms of total funding that's being spent on planting from 792. But again, we're going to use funds that are in the compensatory damages, which comes from, I'm going to restart that sentence. And those funds are generated when trees are removed and evaluation is paid by either developers or residents for the removal of those trees. And then we use those funds to add canopy and replace trees within the community. That fund has been growing over time, so we do have a fair amount of resources to use to replace those trees, while also allowing us to use those funds in 792 for other things within our section.
And then our public-private partnerships with the foundation and Mad Tree, Let's Grow Local, there's another about 200 trees planted through that, so.
Yeah. And then lastly, for materials and supplies, we anticipate 163,000 annually. That covers everything from municipal garage costs, fuel, fleet repairs, utilities, training, office supplies. There are some unknowns in there in terms of like terms of our work management system and annual fees that we're kind of making some anticipated costs on that, but we're still looking to dial them in and really diving into our budgets to really try to nail down materials and supplies and tighten that up as much as we can.
Okay, do we have questions for Garrett or Crystal? Comments? Appreciation?
Definitely appreciate.
No, absolutely.
Have applause from the audience today, Lindsay.
Sometimes it's sort of the vegetables of parks. It doesn't maybe grab the headlines, but it is so core and fundamental what we do. And I am. The prior investments authorized by this body and some capital equipment, additional crews, you show the offset. That is impressive that way. The only, and it's not a challenge for this year, but going forward, never ask for less than what you want. You show payback, you show return on investment, you show consistent performance, and we all very much believe in the valuable assets you are working for the city. So while we certainly appreciate excellent financial stewardship, the juice is always worth the squeeze when it comes to this. So as you look at this on 2 years, every 1 year is the
Every
year.
every year. I would not hesitate to try out other ideas you have and other opportunities. It's not to say that we want to be profitably at spending. We don't, but we're not. And I would encourage you to you've clearly proven you can deliver on the investments that are made. So going forward, don't stop. Like,
Oh, rest assured, this
attend is an appreciation.
So we last increased this assessment rate in when?
22,
22, got it. And it was a kind of a big ordeal.
10 cents.
Yeah,
It was a huge jump compared to anything that had been allocated prior to.
right.
And then it's taken us this long to get the new positions in place. So this will be the first, and they just started at the beginning of October.
Got it.
So I feel like over the course of the next year, especially with the introduction of a work order management system where we can really better track without a lot of administrative burden, exactly where our team's efforts are going and how we're offsetting contractual dollars will allow us to continue down that pipeline. Right now, we're paying about $1,000 per tree that's being planted, maybe about 600.
Yeah, 600
to 1,000, depending on the species. So that's another area where we're looking at, once we get the crews online, get them all trained up, get them in the field, see how they're operating, to potentially start carving back some of those funds and putting that into the hands of the people that we're training and, are really invested in like what we're doing versus contracting it out. Every contract that we put out tends to increase, between 3 to 10% every time. So trying to take some control back over our funding overall.
So if someone has 100 feet of frontage, they're getting a $31 assessment in their property tax bill assessed from the city every year.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the city covers about $1 million. It's about 950,000 or so.
Yeah,
So that's every public property, including parks and state and,
yeah, we cover a portion of that.
yes, exactly. Which is beautiful. I think it makes it really easy to explain to people, especially constituents that are, on a fixed income and saying, why am I paying $31 now instead of the 13 that I was, or something along those lines. And then being able to justify that by saying we all pay a part of this. It's all part of the mechanism that keeps us running.
And we often will get the question, well, I don't have any street trees in front of my house. Why do I have to pay an assessment? And that's just, well, do you use Martin Luther King Drive? If a tree falls down and blocks that intersection and an emergency vehicle can't get through, cost to get that tree so that your services can get through. So it brought the city, whether or not you necessarily have a house.
Right. And even with the in-house crews, we've seen a market return on that, just the amount of time that it takes to close out work orders. You know, if you have to call a contractor and you're on a list of amongst the entire city. So I think we'll just continue to see improvements as we continue to analyze the impacts that we've already, invested in.
Yeah, and Commissioner, to your point, this likely will be the last year where we keep the 31-cent raise. I believe next time we come to you, we'll be asking for an increase, but we're going to determine what that is and what that could also do with our program in terms of what we could provide added benefit.
Appreciate the comparative data with other metros as well is very helpful.
Yeah, Toledo is about the same size, same population as Cincinnati. So it has been kind of a benchmark to eye against. Exactly.
Yeah, Toledo has a staff of 50 arborists though, that they pay for with their assessment. And then they also have a much broader scope of work. So they're much more involved with their park system and kind of a much broader definition of what constitutes a tree that may impact the right of way. So that allows them to do a little bit more than what we may do.
This will also be the first year that we're advocating for capital funding as well. We found through Garrett's work with our foresters, really tracking every tree that's removed due to sidewalk conflicts. The city's really, has very, has no threshold for potential risk or trips, unlike some other cities that you might go to where you see really displaced sidewalks. And that burden for replacing the sidewalk goes back to the property owner. So asking the property owner to, instead of removing the tree and expanding the amount of sidewalk panels that they would be taking out, they tend to just take out the one that's displaced. If we have to cut a root larger than 4 inches, we're losing that huge tree oftentimes.
And then that has both direct and indirect cost to us in terms of contractual costs and lost tree valuations, about $170,000 annually that is coming out of our program for sidewalk issues related to trees.
Yeah, we've talked about this before several years ago. I think it was during maybe the beginning of COVID when the city did the big sidewalk replacement project in Clifton. It took out a lot of 100-year-old oak trees in the neighborhood, including one in front of my house. And it was, I'm not sure if my neighbors have ever looked at me the same way, and it wasn't even my fault. But partnering up with those big sidewalk projects is important so that a lot of homeowners don't think they have a choice. They think they're told that the tree can't survive the sidewalk replacement. And so the city's going to come remove the tree and then it just happens and it's done. And I don't think homeowners realize that they can be successful by advocating. So we have to fill that role.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will say, working more closely with DOTE, we've been able to kind of see what challenges they have from their program and really see where can we step in to help address those and fill in those gaps that they have and advocate for the trees while also providing safe walking surfaces for residents.
Sure, they can coexist.
Yeah.
So sell this idea to council. Is that you, Jason? Or will you guys go to council and sell this idea? Good.
Yeah, we typically are front and center, and we have a very, lovely council that, it's very proactive with trees and greening, and it's in our Green Cincinnati plan. So asking us, and how can you do more? Which is what we got last year.
Nobody dares vote against the Lorax.
Just remind them all they like the air they breathe. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
From a kind of to your point about comparative, I think it'll be very impactful for us to see and for city council to see any cents increase on a property tax bill is going to be discussed at length, no matter how much everybody loves the Lorax. We've got really big property tax bills in Cincinnati. And so even cents matter. But looking at what our state was in 2022, before we did the significant 10-cent increase and where we are now, which I know you can show, takes some time to produce. As you said, we're just really now, up to snuff with the budget will be what makes it compelling.
Yeah, that was a big part of not going for an increase this year. Because we didn't really have the data. We're just now getting to the point where we're realizing the goals that we set, back that far. And also, a lot of that comes down to just the way that our system, the bureaucratic system is. It takes years to develop a new classification in the city. And we've kind of held the brunt of that realization. And as we go forward, I think that's something we'll continue to look at, is just updating existing classifications even before we get to the point of, wanting to make the increase, have the positions in place so that we're able to realize it more quickly.
So Crystal, we are authorizing the annual assessment unchanged at 31 cents for lineal footage.
Yeah, so you're making a recommendation that council proceed to
Okay.
the next step
Council
determination
uses
need.
every year,
Yes.
each and every year. Got it.
Yeah, that like 7-step process that he showed.
Right, okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jason, D&D update. Got a big one this month.
All right, lots of exciting stuff going. I want to be respectful of time. We still have the capital budget discussion and make sure that we spend the appropriate amount of time on everything. So let me know if you want me to speed up or slow down
Great.
as we go through. But lots of great stuff happening. Smale Lot 23, or the stage, or the Smale Stage Lawn down by the Brady Music Center. That project's moving forward full speed ahead. We're working with our partners at the foundation to set up a tour of that for donors, for board members and interested people, probably in April. It says January here, but we've learned April is a little bit better of a spot for that. So that's probably when we'll do that. But that's all going great. We still expect that to be done next summer. The bike skills course obviously is open. Next step is the ADA pathway and taking care of the comfort station and overlook. We've had some great meetings with Megan Construction. We expect pricing back for the comfort station and the overlook in early January. Additionally, we're talking to both Megan Construction and the city's sidewalk contractor, Bruce, about getting some pricing back for the accessible pathway early January as well. And we're hopeful that those prices will come in and we'll feel good about them and be bringing those to you at the January board meeting. The Alt Park Playground is open. You'll see some photos of that later in the director's comments. It was a great event. Commissioner Nyer spoke. It was just really, kids just loved it despite the snow day. We've got a couple of tiny punch list things to work on once the weather clears. And as you can see outside today, the snow is finally cleared. So hopefully they'll be getting that done with and that'll be finished up. Sinton Biochar, the Sinton campus, which includes biochar. Everything's moving forward to get the next stage of construction drawings from KZF this month. We can review those in January with all the various sections that'll be moving onto that property and hopefully get those back to KZF in January. And then hopefully get final construction drawings as early as March with the goal of then bidding that out in the springtime. Very exciting. Everybody's treehouse. Lots of, they're working in the forest. So the weather delays are even a little bit more impactful, but everything's still moving forward with that for a spring opening. We're really excited about everything there. Got to thank our facilities team for doing some great work there to do some carpentry work and around the entrance that wasn't part of the scope. And then additionally, they're going to do some roofing work as the other work goes on. So great stuff. Sawyer Point Playground moving forward full speed ahead. We had a great kind of 10-day survey out. We released some initial sketches, conceptual sketches. Rocky's team's poured through that, and we're going to kind of get that to the contractor hopefully by the end of this week. And then we've got some meetings next week where we're going to start to talk about some of the other spaces. In your packet, you can see some of the drawings that our team's done after we had some on-site meetings with facilities team, with the operations team, with Garrett and our land management and also urban forestry to talk about kind of the health of the trees there and how they'll be impacted by the construction. It does look like we got a couple of trees that are pretty big, but probably are kind of hemmed in by the concrete there and also probably towards the end of their useful life cycle that might not make it, but we'll kind of keep an eye on those as we go. And then we've also set aside the trees that we definitely know we can protect and keep and make sure that those are safe. And then of course, we'll be looking for opportunities to plant new trees in there. They won't produce shade just yet, but in 50 years, when they're thinking about replacing the playground for the next time, they'll be talking about how those are hitting the end of their useful life cycle. So we've got to keep that rotation going. Glenway Park, we are finalizing the contract with those folks and getting design of that early next year, keeping that moving along. And then the Sherman Recreation Area, of course, you guys have seen a lot of work on that. That's still moving forward. Our team's had a couple of great meetings with them, and we expect that hopefully bring you guys something for that for too long. And then the last two things on the list are the things we approved a couple months ago, which is stormwater projects in both Mount Airy and Eden Park. Both at the Elsinore Steps down by WCPO and then up by Playhouse in the Park coming off their garage. The Mount Airy projects are almost complete. We've got 5 of the 6 complete before the weather hit. One of the ones over by the Arboretum Lake will be coming up once the weather gets a little bit better. And then Eden Park, what we mostly have seen is we had some getting the televac done. It wasn't part of the stormwater contract, so we had to go a different route. We got MSD to service for us. So late last week, and Kick said he saw it as you were driving by, but late last week they were televacing those out. There's some photos in your packet of just how much mineral deposit is in there. And so we're trying to get that clear to see if there are any kind of intrinsic problems with the storm sewers back there, but also figure out kind of what is the solution that starts to help that. You know, unfortunately, when you push into a hillside like we've done and you create a lot of impervious surface on top of a hillside, there's going to be some stormwater impacts, and we have to figure out how best to manage those. So lots of fun stuff happening, lots of cool photos in your packet. Happy to answer any questions, but everything's moving along really well.
See the Alms Park pergola, and I can't, is that in the main building or the?
Alms Park pergola is it's a really giant structure. It's probably like 25 feet tall, and it's a really cool overlook kind of down from the main, the pavilion. It is probably 20 years old, probably 20 plus years old. And there is like concrete and stone bases, and then there's like a metal bracket effectively, and then it holds a giant wood structure. That wood is just eroding away. And I don't know if it's something about the way they design that doesn't drain well enough, but I went up there with the facilities team and they can just take a screwdriver and kind of, you don't want to do too much, but you can just kind of dig it out. Got up on a 30-foot tall ladder and you can see where like effectively birds have just buried out some areas of just wood pulp and now have created nesting areas. And so we don't think that it has to come down immediately right now. We did kind of a look at it to see. I've got them getting some ballpark figures for what that could cost to replace, but that's a project that I want to keep on everybody's visibility that if things change or if, you know, that's something that might have to come down while it awaits getting kind of a full restoration, because you know, obviously you don't want it to fall on anybody, but it's just showing its age and it's starting to erode and erode. But
Thank you.
Keeping our eyes on it. Any questions?
Etta, welcome.
Hello. Well, to meet your half meeting deadline, there's 5 minutes left in the meeting, so I will be super duper brief.
A lot of presentations today.
Yes. So in your packet, you have your standard monthly financial packet information. This month, hearing your comments about wanting to get some input on what you're seeing in that packet. I tried to kind of pick out some highlights for you. It's a little difficult for me to put some real analysis into our numbers because of all the financial restructuring that we're doing right now and trying to capture in the finances, the operational restructuring that we've done over the past several years. And so that's one of the things that I pointed out in the memo is that each one of the slides that presents numbers from a last year to this year comparison or prior fiscal years to now or budget to actual, there are target percentages that are presented. And those percentages were developed by people prior to me, looking at fiscal years 2018 to 23, and we're now in fiscal 26. And we all know what happened in 2020, which had a significant impact on the way money was spent and things were done. And so those targets, while they're informative to be able to say, you know, okay, we're in November and how do we compare to where we should be or where we think we should be, understanding that parks is cyclical in the way that we have operations. And so it's a good benchmark to kind of get a feel for how things are going, but they're a bit off because of all of the restructuring that we've done over time. And probably one of the biggest impacts is Back in 2023, there was an effort to take what the districts that we have, and you saw it in Garrett's presentation with East, West, Central, and North. So the operations group had East, Central, and West, and they split Central into, realign that over into East and West, and then created the waterfront district. And that change did not transfer into these targets. So the targets that you see aren't necessarily, on a fund basis anyway, aren't necessarily indicative of where things really are. So what I'm saying is when you look at these presentations, it's great information for, to generate questions from you to me, for me to answer for you if you have an interest in, why is this fund this way or that fund that way. But really, it's the overall numbers at the bottom that are more important right now until we get all of our financial realignment done. So with that, a couple other things to bring up. Let's see, I flagged a couple pages in the presentation. And hopefully I'm on the right page numbering with you as well. On page 38 of your packet, which is the year-to-date available spend. This is an interesting slide, which if you haven't spent much time analyzing this, what this is attempting to tell you is how much money would we have left over in these 5 funds after we receive all of our revenue for the year, after we spend all of our expenses for the year, and we keep a section for reserves. So again, with this one, much like I was just talking about with the targets, you'll see that, if you took these line by line, you would see that 326, we have negative 1.2 million available to spend, and that should create some alarm for you. However, with that, I'm going to say that there is a lot of revenue realignment that we're doing with moving things out of 318 into 326, out of 329 into 326, out of different funds where that really needs to go into the right place because the expenses are there, but the revenues aren't. So when I say look at the bottom line figures, this slide shows you that if everything goes according to our plan, which, we spend a lot of time coming up with plans, right? We should have $2.8 million in these 5 funds left over, allocated to anything. They're not meant to be kept as a reserve. They're not intended to be used for expenses. They're just money that we have available, which should give us a real level of comfort that we're doing all right.
So where's the revenue associated with 326?
Where is the revenue? Some of it is in 318 that needs to be moved over, like the parking. 318 is technically the Bicentennial Commons area. And the Sawyer Point parking is embedded in that right now, and it needs to get moved over. So that's, a good chunk of change that's sitting in that fund that needs to go into 326. With the 430 budget where we, a few months ago, we looked at our budget, it used to be 2.2 million, now it's 1.1. And we moved a lot of those expenses out of 430 because they weren't really endowment funded. Those expenses hit into 326 because that's really the, where we have potential extra revenue based upon, it's not being generated from any one particular source. So it's like our rents and so forth all go into 326. So the expenses went in there and we're in the process of moving the associated revenues with those expenses in.
If you move revenue out of Sawyer Point, then that account will be upside down.
Well, it's not going to move everything. So it's not all in Sawyer Point. It's in a variety of different funds.
Okay. When are you gonna have all this straightened out?
Well, so in my memo, I said it's late fiscal year 2027. And the reason for that is not anything on our end where we're, lagging and not doing it. It's, as Garrett was talking about, the 7-step process. We've been waiting for an idea bill to move some of the revenue for over a month. And once we input that into the system, there's like 3 levels of approval that it has to go through before it happens.
So there's straightening it out going forward. And
Correct.
there's fixing the past, which what about fixing it going forward?
So that part we are working on, and we're well down the way of doing that. But that happened, the the changes, we make the changes on a number basis, like which fund it gets coded to, but until the revenue comes in, it's not going to show in your reports, right? Because it's actual revenue. We're also working a lot with budget to do realignments. We've been spending months talking about the table of organization, getting people into the right places, because like with that operational reorganization, the positions didn't necessarily move to the right funds where they needed to be. We did the functional change with telling people, you know, you're going to work here and you're going to work there, but we didn't necessarily do it in the system. And so their salaries are still, you know, in places they shouldn't be.
So on this available spend sheet, is there any line on here that is accurately accounted for?
I would say Crone Conservatory is probably the most aligned in where it should be. The rest of them, if you would have to kind of lump them together because there's movement happening from one fund to another all through there. Another thing, and this will actually make things a lot easier. We're looking and working with budget to combine three of our funds, which I kind of mentioned that in prior presentations, but 326, 330, and 332, which are park donation and special activity, where our rents and so forth go, and event funds go there. Park Lodge and Pavilion deposits, which is the rental of Oak Lodge and Maple Ridge Lodge, and then Crone Conservatory. Those are all funds that they're internally generated, right? They come from fees that we charge from participants and people. And so there's really no reason for them to be separate, unless we want to have them separately, but there's no legislation that says that this is restricted to this particular use. And so we're looking to combine those into one fund, and then we budget from that fund as well. And that would simplify this exponentially, for sure.
So Fund 326, it says on one sheet that it's park donations and special activity. And this other sheet, it says it's miscellaneous revenue and special activity.
Yeah, so they have, the funds have a specific name in the legislation that authorized them. And park donations and special activity is the official name of the fund.
Clear as mud.
Absolutely.
Well, might be great.
Working on fixing all of it, for sure. The other thing that I wanted to follow up on, Molly, the last meeting you had asked about specific endowment balances, and that is on page 40. So every month this particular report is in your packet. I think we didn't have it last month because the meeting was early and we hadn't received the numbers from our various investment managers. But what this shows you is that I revamped this report a little bit to include year end for as many as I could fit on here with it still being legible. So from June 22, the June 22, June 23, June 24, that's the end of those fiscal years balances. And what I was trying to demonstrate to you is that those funds have increased over time, right? I mean, the market's been pretty good as far as investments are concerned. And with the fact that we hadn't taken distributions for several years, the balances just grew. So back in 2022, there were $18 million worth of endowments for various purposes and parks. And now we're looking at about 25.5 million. So very healthy balances. And that is something that you'll want to keep your eye on as we get into budgeting and we start talking about how much we should distribute off to support parks operations. Other than that,
I think
I went over
about this the last meeting or two that we'd like to see what we have and what we should be spending out of these endowments. What the proposal is from the team. Again, we talked about this yesterday. Money to spend. Making much needed improvements where we can. I understand there are restrictions on any of these. Most of these.
any questions? Other questions? Yes.
It's an observation and appreciation. The target spend, actual spend, that variance, I think is very helpful. Recognizing that blocks make data immediately challenging, but going forward, that context, data isn't useful until you run pieces of it together, and that's where you get information. And I think that's trending very well. So thank you. Again, recognizing there's some wood left to chop. I'm bad with analogies today here, but recognize there's some work left to do.
It's a long uphill battle.
Going a good direction.
Yeah, it's out later.
Hey,
Right, well, we'll look forward to
ongoing improvements.
these reports when they represent reality.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, never to see Derek again, it seems.
Yes.
Report on Derek's behalf, please.
Absolutely. So there's a lot going on in here. Derek's team is hard at work. Big picture, we've got 171 full-time folks, which is up significantly. Kate and I are trying to track back to see what it was during the first couple of reports when I started, but it's definitely gone up by a bunch since I started over the last couple of years, adding to that team. As you can see, we've got a couple of positions that are on hold right now in the hiring process. We're trying to wait until we get some of the clarity that Head is talking about with realigning where all of the positions are paid for and making sure that we've got the incoming revenue to pay positions that we've got. And then you can see some of the initiatives that Derek's team's taken over. One is the Parks Policy Handbook. The city's got a ton of administrative regulations, HR policies, and then Parks itself has a lot that we created internally. Derek's kind of giving that a refresh for the first time in quite some time, at least since before COVID. And that's moving forward, and I'm really excited to see the draft of that coming forward in the next couple of months. Again, marketing recruitment partnership, they're always working to kind of do a better job of getting out there, letting folks know about the opportunities at Parks. Parks Academy has been an exciting one as we're looping a lot of different kind of trainings and professional development into one area, whether that's safety and all of the important stuff we do, whether it's chainsaw maintenance or kind of the other stuff. Garrett's team at Urban Forestry lead the way on some of the safety stuff that we do with the new arborist teams. But then it's also training, whether it's how to use computers or how to speak to a group or different trainings like that. And then of course, professional development and conferences and getting licenses and stuff like that. We're trying to loop all of that together into one Parks Academy. That's going great. And then he mentions the impact group and all of the stuff we did with developing the shared values and culture project. Got the boards out in the lobby and we're now working through how to implement that, how to make sure we're living that every day of the year and making that really foundational to us. And there's a lot of fun stuff that's going to come out of that in the coming months. So a lot of exciting stuff. Derek and his team are just doing great work.
Great. Questions on the HR update? Let's move on to capital budget.
All right. It is once again capital budget time. Capital budget process is a little shorter than the assessment process. Well, I guess not shorter, but maybe definitely has its own steps. Step one is that shortly before Thanksgiving, we get a target from the budget office for what our capital target is for the year. It's become a little bit more helpful with the 6-year planning process that's come out of the new Cincinnati Southern Railway endowment. So we had an idea of what we were going to have heading into this year, but we don't officially know until right before Thanksgiving. And then we've got kind of a real race to put it together and come up with a plan and get it before you. Once it's approved by the park board, it then goes into the capital budget system and process, and they balance that against the capital needs throughout the city. And they'll come up with a proposal that we'll start to learn about in February, March. And we'll have any sort of kind of negotiations with them. Negotiations is the wrong word, but discussions about, all right, well, we can do this, but we can't do that. How would you reprioritize this? And then once that gets kind of settled, that then comes out as part of the city manager's budget in May. City council then gets to have their own say about what priorities they want to see and if they want to make any changes. Then that gets passed in June. And then we receive the money in kind of late July is when it's finally unlocked. So we're 7 or 8 months out of actually getting these funds, but that's the step in the process we are in. And so there's a 3-page memo that kind of runs through everything. The one thing I will note out of that is that community budget requests are a big part of the city budget process. Citizens are able to make requests for their neighborhoods, and then those are routed to the appropriate department to kind of see if those are something that's able to be done. And then city council and the administration like us to try to adjust those. We're able to address about 5 of them in our budget request, hopefully. Obviously, even if we decide to address them, we still have to work with the community to kind of find out what they want and how to implement it properly. For this year, the city gave us a target of $6.15 million, approximately, for our budget request. As you'll see, as I run through this, we're going to request 7.15, which includes advancing one project, 6-year plan for next year into this year. And so of that, $3.6 million of that is for our infrastructure and rehabilitation, which is kind of our general capital budget that we get to do a lot of emergency or kind of common day-to-day maintenance stuff. And then we get kind of strategic initiative projects that we were targeted at 2.5 million. And again, we're going to ask for 3.5. So I'll run through those real quick first. This is on page 30, which is the capital budget or the 6-year plan. The highlighted ones, the top 4 are the ones that we were targeted to get in the plan as it was passed last year. And that is originally $500,000 for the Mount Airy Adventure Playground, $1.3 million for McAvoy, $500,000 for Warder Nursery, and then another $250,000 for playground renovations. Acknowledging that the Mount Airy Playground is going to be a little bit more expensive or is going to need plenty of resources, we've proposed moving that $250,000 up to be $750,000 for the Mount Airy Adventure Playground. And then lastly, Smale Concrete and Granite Rehabilitation is slated for fiscal year 28, according to the 6-year plan. However, that is an issue that we've been bringing to the forefront for a couple of years now. We think it's super important and needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. Anybody that visited Smale this summer might have noticed that on the Vine Street Cascades, the westernmost cascade was shut down and has been shut down for several months now. It had sprung so many leaks that the water wasn't making it all the way to the bottom of the cascade. And it was kind of leaking through a lot of different spots. And in fact, it was leaking into the office space and the garage space below. So we had to shut that down. And so that needs immediate attention, along with lots of the other things. A lot of the logic behind selling the railroad and creating this incredibly helpful endowment was to deal with deferred maintenance, but we also want to deal with ongoing maintenance, right? We don't want to let these jewels of the city, at this point, Smale's 10 years old, 12 years old. It needs upgrades. A 12-year-old car needs the transmission fluid changed. It needs the tires rotated. It probably needs new brakes or other things taken care of. And we want to both do and tackle deferred maintenance. And as you know, we've got a long list of that and we're addressing it as quickly as we can, but we also want to try to stay on top of the ongoing maintenance for some of our premier facilities like Smale. So this is a request from the administration and city council to allocate those funds a little earlier and make sure we can address that as quickly as possible. So those are the strategic initiative ones, including the additional $1 million that we're asking to be moved up. And then if you look at page 31, you can see those strategic initiatives at the top, but then the chart below that is kind of how we would spend our infrastructure and rehabilitation dollars. Noting that we've got a ton of projects ahead of us that we're already trying to get our arms wrapped around and stay on top of. I'll just run through this real quick. Sailor Park Picnic Shelter and Stage. This has been a budget request that they've had in front of us for several years. It started as potentially just some shade sails that would be above their little stage area. But as we kind of talked to them about what does the park really need and how would it serve best all of their events they do, we've come to an agreement that a picnic shelter is probably what would be best for them. It can be used 365 rather than just on the 4 big events they do a year. That's a community budget request that we're tackling. Crystal and Garrett mentioned innovation around sidewalks and keeping our big trees. So we've invested an initial $150,000 into allowing them to kind of try some pilot projects and see if we can't save some trees and we'll build this out to be really effective. The Sinton Operations Campus is going to have IT needs that won't be included in the construction project. So we've set aside some dollars for that. The Bramble Park Trail is one that Parks applied for a grant for that before I started. That's one that took us a while to wrap our arms around, but we're digging into this year. We've got about $145,000 between grant and match dollars, but that was for a 2020 grant application. So we're going to add a little bit of money to the kitty to that to make sure we can do that right. General IT needs, that's something that needs to be in the capital budget, which wasn't totally clear last year. We thought it was funded from an outside source, but it needs to be included in this. We've included that. $500,000 for Sawyer Point parking lot entrance and accessibility improvements. That's something that's been, I've been telling everybody, never waste a crisis. We've got the crisis of the playground that burned up, and we're going to tackle that. But we also need to invest in improving the accessibility to the parking or to the facility or to Sawyer Point. Facilities maintenance, Bellevue Park stabilization analysis and design. The Cuff community has been activating Bellevue Park and doing a great concert series there on Friday nights and doing a lot of stuff there. We've made some investments into bollards and some security stuff. We're getting a gate put in there that the police department's going to help us close up Bellevue. This, if you'll look on the 6-year plan, that $250,000 for stabilization analysis and design was slated to be in FY 2030. But in order to try to address community budget requests, and because we care for that pavilion as much as the Cuff community does, we're proposing moving that up into this year, but not asking for it under the kind of strategic initiative section, but instead rolling it into our infrastructure and rehabilitation to try to get that moving quicker, to try to make sure we keep that structure and save it for a long time. And then lastly, we've got facilities maintenance for almost $800,000. We gave them $500,000 last year out of our infrastructure rehabilitation, and Jenny and the team have been doing a fantastic job of spending that. And as Molly just said a second ago, we've got lots of money, let's spend it. So if you spend the money well, we want to refill that kitty and keep them working. And so we've added a little bit more to that. This is everything from garage doors to street lights to all of those kind of facilities maintenance things, bathroom fixtures, all that stuff to keep that super modern and fresh and in tip-top working order. $600,000 for contingency projects. These are things like the stormwater projects in Eden Park and Mount Airy. Could be concrete, sidewalks, asphalt, things that are emerging problems. And then lastly, engineering, planning, design. That is the payroll supplement to all folks that manage these projects. And so this would be a great moment to be remiss if I didn't note that in our audience today, we're joined by Travis Miller, who is joining us as the new division manager of planning design starting January 5th. And so he will be helping us to plan all these out and execute them and helping me present this in future years when we come up with what the capital plan is. So he joins us from the Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana Regional Council of Governments, where he spent 16 years as the region's regional planning director. And he's going to bring a lot of expertise to us to help us execute all of these goals. So
We can't wait. A lot of exciting stuff to work on.
So happy to answer any questions. This is the kind of beginning stage of my first couple of years. I felt like when this project came every year, we had to come up with what we wanted to do. This year, had I got the instructions right before Thanksgiving and was kind of like, what are we going to do? And I was like, it's all here. We just got to kind of put the puzzle pieces into place, and we kind of know what's on our horizon, and then decide what our strategic success for this year. So it feels like it came together really well, and should be stuff that you guys have had on your radar for a while now.
Mm-hmm. Questions? Input, comments? When does this get submitted to the city manager?
Well, what's that?
Last Friday.
Correct. Yeah. Unfortunately, their process does not align with our meetings. So every department's required to submit it. We submitted it, but the first sentence was, this is a draft until it is approved by the board next week. And so if we were to make radical changes, we would resubmit changes that are made today or in the coming days.
We should probably look at doing that in November next year.
We've actually always done it like this, and they're really comfortable with us being able to submit it as a draft like that. The problem with November is that we don't get the targets until right before Thanksgiving, which is after our meeting. So their entire process for us happens between two meetings, which is.
And then I have noted that we have our budget request, I think for the operating budget, goes to the manager in February. Is that right? Okay. See, I'm keeping track of our. Great. I just went through, my concern always is taking on new projects that are outside the plan because we're, again, limited on resources. And I went down through and they're all here. There isn't anything outside that, I'll say, with the exception of Crone. And I would like to put on our list for next year to have a really serious conversation about how we are going to take on that project. And I think, I have some ideas. I'd like to hear the staff's ideas. This is going to be a highly collaborative project, obviously with our partners at the Parks Foundation. And it's going to take I think it's going to take a dedicated team. And understanding the makeup of that team is important. Tell me again what the 250 is for this year. This is a small item.
The 250 that is in FY 26 is to do an
Oh, that was last year. Okay.
engineering study and analysis. So what
Have
we
we-
found, we have not done that yet. That'll be one of the projects that Travis gets to kick off in the next couple of months. Effectively, what we found, we've got kind of ballpark ideas of what we think Crone could be, small, medium, large, right? Depending on kind of the scale of what we decide to do, which I think needs to be a conversation with the board, with the community, with the foundation and others. But what we realized is when we went to the city to say, hey, this could be anywhere from 20 to an $80 million project over the next 6 years, they were like, what is that based on? And we're like, well, you gave us 10 days to come up with a plan. So it's based on our guesses. And what we realized is we need to do the analysis of, like, you can walk through, I can't walk through, but engineers can walk through and say, here are some issues, eyeballing it. John Dietrich, who's a friend of mine and a city government legend, was a city engineer for a long time, managed the Banks project. He pulled me aside at the tree lighting, which you were at, and started to tell me all the things that he saw, because he's an engineer. We need to get that on paper so we can start to make the case that this is the fundamental problem that we have to address so that Crone exists in 10 years. And then from that, we can build on what is the size and scale of using that opportunity for that deferred maintenance to then dream for what is the next iteration of what can happen at Crone, whether that is, classroom space or additional display rooms.
We want it there for 100 years.
Exactly. But at the baseline, we need to establish here's the situation with the building. To go back to the car metaphor, because we're big on metaphors today, the brakes are rusting. The struts are bouncing over the potholes, and it's not the potholes' fault. It's also the struts' fault. The windshield's got a crack in it. We need to get those kind of numbers on paper so that when we're having these conversations, we have a more data. And then I think the next step, and that's what
Analogize it to safety issues.
Very true. But then the next step, and you see that in FY 28, is to then bring on somebody that's going to help us put that dream together. That's not just the baseline structural stuff, but is above and beyond that. Exciting stuff.
No marina request in here.
Correct. No marina request in here. We've got about 1.3 million set aside existing funds that were set aside before I started in 2021 for the marina. And then we've got a $1.5 million request in through the state's Ohio Department of Natural Resources to the federal government. And then we're currently working on another request to the state capital budget process and through Hamilton County's planning process. And so we hope to be successful in getting that recommended in January area.
Well, I think it would be inappropriate to ask the city for money for the marina at this point, given we have not received any indication of cost from the winning bidder for the proposal to build the marina. So appreciate the efforts of you and Kara of raising public dollars to support that eventual project.
Absolutely.
Great work there. That's all I had. Great. All right, then I think Jason would appreciate a motion to approve the capital budget request.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Much appreciated.
Good luck.
So the last piece that's a little bit part of that is that I would just point out that we have a beautiful new, and in your packet, you have the Excel spreadsheet version, which is the version that I'm capable of producing. Then you have the beautiful updated 3-year forecast of projects. that is public facing, and it's been incredibly popular with kind of explaining the gigantic amount of work that we're doing. You can see at the top the kind of projects that are next up, and the construction schedule. As always, the red moves from left to right as we move down and across the years. And then below, you will see next up. One thing that you'll notice in here is there's a lot of next up projects. In fact, seven that are the next 2 quarters of planning. That is effectively the welcome Travis, and let's figure out what the next steps are in these. Many of these are smaller projects, lower dollar projects like the Doris Day Dog Park. The Gibson House roof is about a $250,000 roof replacement project. But while we've been knocking out a lot of projects since the last time this was updated in April, including the playground, the Burnett Woods Dog Park, the bike skills course, Smale Lot 23 is moving forward, the Alt Park trail restoration and others. Waiting for Travis has allowed us not to get as far along on some of the planning we wanted to do. Well, both waiting for Travis and then also being focused on getting these projects done. And so what you're going to see is when we update this again in June, you're going to see a lot of those projects start to have schedules behind them. And so as always, we'll have a mix of the longer projects and the 2 to 3 month projects in that top section. And we'll start to see that move forward and always have a kind of a good balance of the immediate quick projects and then the longer term projects. So.
How's that feel, Travis? We've been waiting for you longer than we've known you.
Like I said, started a few months ago.
I agree. There will be plenty of time.
Many people dream of sugar plum fairies and candy canes.
Right.
Travis gets to dream of all of the projects he gets to do and all of the dirt he gets to push with us.
So exciting.
A long, long time.
The work is never done. Okay. Do we have, what else do we have? Any further comments, Jason?
So just real quick, and I can go as quick as you need me to go. We've hit the 2-hour mark, but Crone, first of all, the Crone Holiday Show is going great. Everybody's loving as always, the trains and all of the beautiful, like wooden, natural buildings. The Crone Spring Show, however, starts on January 18th. It is the Moonlight Menagerie. And that is January 17th through April 19th. Visitors will be transformed into a moonlight garden with white and silver flowers. The show features nocturnal creatures like frogs, bats, and foxes, but they're as lanterns. So you can see these photos of these lanterns that have been created that are absolutely gorgeous. And so folks are just going to love this. Snow removal. We got a big snowstorm, not as big as last year. We had a once in a generation snowstorm, but we got a couple snowstorms, and our team just did an amazing job of getting out and taking care of it. Obviously we're in charge of all of our driveways and parking lots and all of the places people report and all of the areas, but we're also in charge of all of the sidewalks that go around our places. We've got 5,000 acres, 10% of the city. We own a lot of sidewalks, and we don't, like, as with lots of things, we don't have near the staff to take care of that. But after last year's snowstorm, we invested in 6 to 8 snow blowers. And so we bought these snow blowers, and it's made a world of difference. We've gotten several people that have reported how quickly we got the paths cleared. In the past, you get 2 or 3 inches, the sun's going to take care of it before our small team can get to all of the miles and miles of paths. But with snow blowers, we can kind of address it in real time. And it really has been a game changer. We're getting, even the staff, anybody that's shoveled a driveway knows that it is a lot better to snow blow a driveway than it is to shovel a driveway. Scarily, I just read an article that said you shouldn't shovel a driveway after 45. And I feel like that it hurt my feelings a little bit. But we've been really excited about how that's changed things. And it's been great. Adopt a class, the next slide. So you can see there in the bottom corner, Dave Boutel and Andrew Campbell, as we did our tree planting at Mount Airy Elementary. You got me playing with some wood and showing some kids there. But we've got a team that does Mount Airy Elementary of 4th graders, and then we got a team in Cheviot that does 5th graders. And Hedda is on that team. It's just an absolute blast. This is an initiative the city managers really push, but Parks is just loving it. We got about 15 people that do this all the time and are having a blast with it. Alt Park Playground. These kids busting through there was fantastic. I don't know what the climbing structure is spec for, but there had to be 20 kids in there. And I know somewhere 2 or 3 kids are saying, I was the one that touched the top first, because those kids went up there just like I don't even know, as they took over it, but it was fantastic and everybody had a blast. A couple things coming up. Holiday Skies at Trailside Nature Center in Burnett Woods is happening tomorrow night. Guests get to experience real holiday light show in winter sky from the Wolf Planetarium, both for kids and adults. Winter day camps by Explore Nature starting next week. This is during the break, kindergarten through 6th grade, fun things to do, hiking, games, animal encounters, all of which don't involve an electronic device. But themes include Dungeons and Dragons, the Ice Age, Blizzard Blast, all kinds of fun stuff. Chris Crindle Market, our partner at Moreland Lager House, Greg Hardman, is just always a great partner, and he's doing some awesome things down there. It's just been going great all year long. It runs through December 28th. This year, no ice skating, but instead they have a big kind of fest house that's been really great and seen a lot of all kinds of vendors. It's just been awesome. Excuse me, the Crone Plant Sale happens at the end of the holiday show, and it's on Tuesday, January 6th from 10:30 to 1 p.m. If you want to support Crone, come by and pick up some of the mini ferns and plants used to make the holiday show. You can take them. And then last, and certainly not least, park babies. So it was a fertile year at the Parks Department last year. This was a photo that we have in the last page of our annual report. But basically anybody that had a kid or was on leave or anything from all of fiscal year 25 is included in this picture, including our very own Commissioner Lee and his daughter Mira Rose. But all kinds of babies there. It was just a blast. Babies don't get to meet other babies very often, so it was really interesting to see all the toddlers kind of look at each other like, what's going on over here? You're my size. I'm used to just being around big people. And they all had big eyes, and then many of them dressed in their Halloween costumes, which was just an absolute blast. But we welcome these future park employees and look forward to the free labor they will provide in the next 6 months to a year as we get them out there picking up litter and doing all kinds of stuff, no matter how big they are. And then last, I do want to welcome, hopefully he's still listening in, but for the longest time, we have been joined by Kevin Frank from the city's law department, who is online with us for every meeting, keeping us in line and making sure that we have all of our legal needs covered. We just found out yesterday that Kevin is moving on to some bigger and better things in the law department. And we're going to be joined by John Ford, who should be online somewhere. But John, welcome to the team. And we look forward to you spying on us, if you will, on the Zoom meeting every month and keeping us straight. And we assume that you'll give us every bit of the hustle and effort that Kevin has for many years. So thank you so much and welcome to the Park Board family. I don't think he'll be able to respond, but anyways.
I think there's one participant.
I think that's Kevin, yeah. So many people are watching us on YouTube, but the link to actually be in it are only shared with a few people.
Gotcha. Great. Well, thank you for everything, Kevin, and welcome, John.
There he is.
There's Kevin.
Oh, hey, he does. He lives and breathes.
All right.
Will that do it? Any comments from the commissioners? Yes.
A couple things. One is I was able to attend CPAC. And I'm just always impressed by our volunteers, how enthusiastic they are, how much they get things done, and the partnership with the foundation that makes it possible. And it was really fun meeting a lot of CPAC volunteers. And I think it's an opportunity for us to make them feel even more engaged and more valued. And so we're kind of looking into some possibilities. And the other thing is that I am part of the the design selection committee for the Women's Veterans Project.
Yippee.
And I look forward to kind of being a liaison and keeping Jason and the commissioners advised as developments occur that I think are important to us.
That's going to be time consuming.
So going to be that phase of it is not going to be as time consuming. Some of
It's
the
important.
others, yeah.
Okay.
Anything further? Then we will adjourn the meeting.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, same.
So much.
Enjoy the break. Hopefully you get one. This is from